the thing that I actually use to help organize. So one of the things that I use to help organize myself with using Canvas is
Hear
the
me?
use of my. I can hear you. Yay.
Yay, 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 yay. It's working now.
I thought this is so awkward, but okay.
Well, I
um,
don't know. I kept clicking it, and it was like right when you started asking me questions, and the admin came in, and I'm like, okay, I need to talk to them. So, okay, I'm ready.
okay, awesome. So which state are you calling from?
I am calling from Washington State. I basically use Learning Center right now to just get all the laps off of it, and I'm going to have a couple of test students this later spring work on the finance class. I've I've created just using the regular MBA Intro to Finance course guide. I've done that because I want to be able to use this more next year. Our students don't have email, but next year they will. So I'm trying to be organized now, so instead of trying to figure it out next year as I do it. So
Got you. So do you, when you said you're setting tests up, do your students have access to the Learning Center?
not not yet.
Okay, so what you do as far as your tests is maybe create it or use tests and download them, um, and then maybe upload it into another learning management system. Is that what you do?
Well, we do a lot of stuff with paper right now. What I'm working on more is trying to use this more next year and use it with the testing and the grading because I'm kind of struggling right now trying to keep up with all of the grading. So,
I understand. So what I want to show you tonight, and if I get too loud, please let me know because I have this thing kind of pop up to say you're too loud, and I don't know if I am or not. But um, so what I want to show you tonight is really how which you it sounds like you're already familiar with it, but the fact that when you bring laps in, they actually come in to your course as modules. But I want to show you what else I do as far as creating modules to get myself organized with my classes. And it sounds like because you're trying to plan for the future, this might be ideal for you because the way that I have it set up is one in which I can go back and just tweak some of the dates for next year. And I kind of have my shell of my course set up by the time all is said and done. So what I would like to do is just to go through a couple of slides with you here on the PowerPoint, and then we're going to actually go out and look at the Learning Center to kind of look at what I've done and see if that's something that you might could actually use. That you might could actually use for yourself. And if not, then you can just kind of keep it as you're going. I saw a message where you left and you've arrived, so I'm not sure if you're here or not.
I'm here. I don't know what happened. It's like it goes for about 5 minutes and then it turns everything. I mean, my computer's not falling asleep. It's like it disconnects from you. You cut out and then you're gone. So, okay, you were saying you want to show me tonight.
Right, so I'm going to show you a couple of slides here, and then we're going to go out and look at the Learning Center. And I'm going to show
Okay.
you what I've done as far as using modules to organize my course with the intent of being able to use it year after year, just kind of tweaking some of the dates as we go along. So
I would like that because I know I went to the MBA conclave and the teacher from Kentucky who has like hundreds of, I was wanting kind of like how she keeps everything all organized because I went to one of her classes. So,
and I can't remember who you're talking about, but she had blonde hair, right?
yeah, she had
Did she
blonde
have,
hair. Yes.
I can't remember her name for anything, but I know exactly who you're talking about. And I believe that she does all hers online as well. I think it's almost like an independent study.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if I met you at Conclave because I was there as well.
We did
Um,
meet,
we
but
did meet.
yes, we did meet, but I was probably along one of the several hundred people that you met.
Yeah. Yes, but if I ever saw your face, I probably would know more so better with your face than your name. So, in looking at this, just to kind of give an idea, and again, this is going to look a lot like, or since you understand in the Learning Center and your lab modules, this is kind of what this is. coming from, that when you create modules, it's pretty much to help organize your content, to control the flow of the actual lab that you've brought in, or even for your course to control the way that you want to give students your work or their work. You can organize your course by the content itself as far as the lab modules, or you can actually set it up to do it by weeks or by units. It's pretty much up to you on what your organizational structure needs to be to meet the demands of your school district, or even in your classroom if you have some of the liberty to kind of do whatever needs to be done. When you're looking at your modules, what you pretty much see is a one-directional linear flow where you have the information starting like with the handout, the student handout in your lab modules, and then you have everything else that kind of falls underneath that, and it's up to you to pick and choose what you want to use. And since you are familiar with the lab modules, you know that they contain files, whether it be PDF or Word documents, also discussions, as well as assignments, quizzes, and some of the other learning materials. That varies depending on which lab module you're actually looking at. And whenever you bring a lab module into your course, like I had kind of mentioned earlier, it actually comes in as a module where all of it is pieced together. But the interesting thing about that is that when you're looking at this, you see it all grouped together in a module, but actually all of that stuff that's in your module is housed somewhere else within that Canvas course that you've just downloaded it into. So when you're looking at the module itself, all of it's been put together, but your post-test can actually be found under quizzes, and you've got your files like your Word document and PDF files that are found under the actual label called files. You've got your PowerPoint that is there as well. And then you've got all of these different sections of your student handout that you can break it apart with just the different topics within a handout. They're all set up as pages. So even though you're looking at all of it in a module setting, every one of those pieces are housed somewhere differently within the Canvas. Your modules is just what brings it together. So I'm not sure if you knew that or not, but I'm going to show that to you. And so how do you use your lab modules? The ones that you use, I know that you said you're creating tests, but as far as giving assignments to students, what are some of the things that you use within the lab modules? So I think I have lost Heather again. See if I can get her back. Okay, so since you've lost sound again, what I'll do is kind of just go through, and if you want me to stop and kind of show you something or explain something to me, just throw it in the chat box.
Okay, can do that.
Are you back?
I don't know why it does that. It's like every 5 minutes. But did you hear how I used were you able to hear me when I said how I used the laps?
No, just as soon as you started talking, you went away.
Oh, okay. Well, we just did like kind of read and then did either an individual or a group activity, and then we did the post-test after it. And if it was a more complex thing, I went through the PowerPoint, and it was a great time for teaching economics because there was a lot of stuff going on in the news.
Right.
So we're able to pull things from the news and talk about that along with and use it with the PowerPoint. So
right. So when you're using your laps, does it vary just depending on whatever the topic is? As
It
far as
is.
what
I
you're
mean,
pulling, yeah,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
It seems like though that you have a great understanding to know that you don't have to use every single component of that lab module to make it effective, as long as you're pulling in the pieces that you feel like your class needs at the time. Um, so when you said that y'all read the student handout, do y'all read it in its entirety, or do you break it down into different sections, or how do you do that?
I sometimes had broke it up by students, and they each took a section of it, not necessarily the A or B objective, but they would take like and then I would have them kind of break it down for their fellow students to do that, so that we all could read at the same time, or
Right.
gave them Cornell notes and we broke down it by objective, and then they went through and made notes on that.
But you're giving them the handout, right? You're giving them like a copy or at least access to the digital download of it.
I actually made paper copies for them, all organized in a nice book for them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. That just kind of helps as far as what direction when I'm showing you the structure that I use for organization. So, all right, so let me
And
go
this
ahead.
is really only my second year teaching, so I am just open to learning how other people do stuff, because I'm sure there are better ways.
Right. Well, I don't really want to say better, but just might be a way that you hadn't thought about to kind of bring,
Exactly.
bring it in or whatever. I can't remember. I did one of the conclave sessions that I did was best practices for laps. Did you go to that one? Do you
I
remember?
did, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That I showed some of those things when you said Cornell notes. I said, I wonder if she come up with that or if that was something that she pulled from out of the actual session that I did. But because that's one of the things that I cover as far as note taking for that student handout. But there were some other pieces there as well. So that's cool. I applaud you for it being your second year taking the task, because looking at your lab modules, they can get really overwhelming when you're looking at all the things that you have available to you. So that's pretty cool to know that you've decided to just dive in and go with it. So that's pretty nice, commendable. How do you use labs? I just asked you that question. So these were some of the things just to kind of get you going in the event that you couldn't really figure out any one way of how you handle it. But as far as do you use the individual reading sections, which you shared that you do, you also shared that you use the PowerPoint and that you have used the individual and group activities. Do you have your students access lab modules? You said that right now you don't. But that is something that you're looking at for the future. But even still, you still can take the information that's shared with you through this particular webinar to use it for your own use, and then incorporate your students in as you get more and more comfortable with them. And then I think I asked you if you used a learning management system, and it seems like that you said um, that you didn't, or that you actually printed out copies for them. But do you use a learning management system?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just kind of hang in there knowing you're coming back.
Yeah.
So do you use any type of learning management system, like
We
Schoology
are
or
we are a Google
Classroom?
school. We use Google Classroom, but I really want to get away from. I would rather just have students go into the Learning Center and work this way.
Right.
Because Canvas is what more colleges and other places are using, along with
Right.
Blackboard and stuff, but they're not necessarily using Google Classroom.
Got you. So again, this would be ideal as far as building your class, especially with it in mind that you're going to get your students to, your intent is to get them to go through the Learning Center to take it. Just a couple more slides here. We've already kind of talked about that, so I'm going to go past that. A couple of the pros and cons of using modules the way that I use modules is the fact that the pros of it is going to be that you can customize your course using the lab modules, but also uploading things that you have brought into the course itself that's not a part of your lab modules. Because in North Carolina, which is where I teach at, we use an adapted version of the courses through MBA research. But I also have other things that I bring in that's not a part of that curriculum or that course at all that go along with the content. So you can upload that information and set your structure that way. With that being said, it's easy for you as well as your students to access the files because there is a file section, and you can make that as organized as you want to make it. Your students can easily access those same files that you have access to. And when you set it up as a module setting, and I do mine per week, then you kind of go away from having to scroll through all of those numerous laps just trying to find the information that you're wanting to include in that week's activities or assignments that you have. The cons to it would be the fact that in the beginning it's a little time consuming to kind of get that organizational structure there, but then once you have it, you pretty much can just tweak it to make it work from semester to semester. So with that being said, I want to go ahead out and let's go look at the Learning Center to see what it is that I have. And so this is mine for entrepreneurship. That is one of the classes that I teach. And so what I have done, a couple of things I just kind of want to show you is that when you first pull in lab modules, you pretty much see this particular area down here at the bottom. All of these down here are lab modules for entrepreneurship. I have them all collapsed just so that I don't go crazy just trying to see all the different options that I have there. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with how to collapse those, but that's how you do it. You just toggle with your little triangle here to open and close it. And again, I don't have them published for the students to see. So what I have done in building this, and actually what we have in my school district is we have Canvas as a district that is not this particular Canvas. It's a different server that we use. And so I actually built my entrepreneurship course on that other Canvas, but I brought in some of the weeks here so that you can see how that works. So what I do with mine is I actually set my weeks up. And so this is going back to first semester because that's when I actually taught entrepreneurship. So if I drop this down, it shows you every single day what I did for that first week. I started on the 29th because the very first pieces of it were just kind of filler things as students were getting schedule changes and things along those lines. But when we actually started into the course, one of the very first things that my students did was the EQ test. They answered all that series of questions that's a part of a lab module. And then there was a group activity that we did that was there. And then an external assignment that I brought in was a famous entrepreneurship project that I brought in.
All right. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So here, what you'll see are two things that I got out of the lab modules. This famous entrepreneurship project is one that I brought in, but again, it's where my students could actually see it. And then September 1, because if I were to click on this to show you the instructions for it, it gives the instructions for the students, but it also lets them know, by the way, we're presenting this on Friday. So the actual instructions for this activity, I created it as a PDF file for them to see it. As far as what they had to do, they could use a PowerPoint or some other type of presentation application that they could use for that. So that is just showing you how I structured it for week 1 for that class. And then we moved on to week 2, and again, I listed the time frame of that week and was able to pull in the specifics without having to look through all of the lab modules to do so to find out what we were doing. So again, I labeled it as such as what they were for students to be able to see. So in the event that they missed a day, they could go back and see what we did on September the 5th. And the information is right there for them to be able to access it. Without having to play a guessing game as far as what we did. And that is if you're wanting to actually bring them into your Canvas platform for them to have this access. So on this particular one, they had the student handout, which is what you said you give them, but you put it in a notebook. One of the things that I do with those student handouts is I take the learning guide or practice test, depending on the age of the lab module, and I have my students take notes from off of that learning guide, because those seem to be the relevant pieces of information that the students need to know within that student handout. And then those post-test questions are pretty much generated from the student handout as well as that learning guide. And that learning guide, with that pulling out the important pieces, those post-test questions pretty much come from there. And so that is where I include those things. And so what my students do here is they download that Word document. They answer the questions by typing in the answers. I had them change the font color, and then they resubmit that assignment back to me here on Canvas. So I keep it as green as I possibly can, as far as trying to do away with, I'm not quite paperless by any means, but I do try to cut down when I can. So that's an example of that. And then it kind of goes on with, what we do with week 3, just trying to single that out with things. Again, trying to keep the students from having to filter through and go through all the individual laps to find what it is that they need. When I was saying earlier that when you pull a lap in, your lap kind of groups everything together that belongs for that lap module, but everything that you have within a lap is actually housed somewhere else. For example, if I were to go to pages, and this looks disastrous if you look at it in the sense of organization, because this is every page from every lab that has no rhyme or reason to the actual name of it. So this right here would not be a good way to try to go find sections of a student handout that you would go and try to have students to read. But if you gave them the whole entire handout, that would be a piece that you wouldn't need as far as looking at these pages, because that's what they're doing. They're just taking each one of those little sections of a handout and breaking it down into individual pages. Much like what you're saying that you do, except for you give them the hard copy for them to look at instead of saying, well, look online and look at this little paragraph here. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, okay. It does.
So then you have your file section, and that's where all your PDF files and your Word document files are located. And if I were to scroll through here, and you'll see that they kind of break down by what the lap number is. And you'll see that some of these have the discussion guide, the group activities for that particular one or whatever. And so what I have been doing is going through, and I set up a folder for each one of those so that I can kind of bring some structure to the files themselves, so that if I'm looking for something that's in that business law lap BL6, that I could actually go in there and see that there's other information to be found with that particular lap module. So all of these right here are actually related to the BL6 there. So again, that's just another organizational structure for me. Then on quizzes, I think I might have lost you again.
Okay. And the quizzes, do they self-grade? Is that what most of them do?
On your quizzes, they do. You would kind of set it up like on this one right here. If I were to go click on it, this right here is a graded quiz. It's worth 100 points. Right now it's in an assignment group called Imported Assignments, but you can actually go to your assignments and create your own groups and create your own ways to be able to do that. So it doesn't, this is just how it was imported in, but you can definitely change it. You would just edit it. Okay. So like on this one, if I were to go to edit here, and it's going to allow me to do it. What it does is you can put your instructions here on the little open box. On the quiz type, if I hit my drop down, it shows you it's already set up as a graded quiz, and that's just how it was brought into your course. But then if you go to your assignment groups, this is where, like, I've got one called classwork. Say that it's not a quiz, but it just is being treated as so as such, but I'm not going to count it as a quiz. I'm going to count it as a classwork grade. Then I can change that assignment group to that. That is something I created. It's not anything that was brought in through the lab. But again, you can create your own assignment groups and put your own weights if you do a weighted system and not points. So you can set some other things about shuffling your answers, whatever the case might be, when you want to, when it's due, who it's assigned to, those kind of things. you just pretty much set it up for them to take it, and then they would actually take it. You can actually preview this test to see what it looks like as far as the questions and what the answer choices would be to go through. Right now on these are worth 5 points each, but if you wanted to change those, you could just edit your quiz and make them worth more than that or less, whatever you wanted to do.
Okay.
Is how you could do that. As far as setting up your groups, you would do that under assignments. If you go to your assignments section over on the side, and mine's kind of working, but right now I have something called assignments. The imported assignments are the ones that actually come in with your lab modules, but you can actually add a group. If you just add a group here, you could call it something like, I don't know, is there a certain heading that you use for your groups?
No.
Okay, so what if I just call this a project? I don't know, just to show you how it's done. That you could set that up, and so now I have that group that's called project as well, and so I can actually go through here, and in doing so, I can assign group weights. So if I did weights this way, this is where I could actually go and add the
Oh,
percentage for
gotcha.
each one of those. So that if
Okay.
like for me, the big part of my assignments in my classes is classwork. So classwork, why do I have two? Because I've demonstrated this twice. I didn't delete out one of them, but I can make this like 50%. And then I could have where I have project, I probably should call that test. I could make that 30%, and then just say imported assignments could be 20 or whatever to get my 100%. And so now they all have weights if I did it by the weighted grading procedure. So now that kind of shows you what each one weighs. And so when it's doing your grading calculations, that's how it's based on your actual grade for those. But these are all, these all come in as imported assignments. So if you wanted them to be something different, you would need to edit the actual quiz itself so that you can make it something other than that. Your gray zones, all of those are set up as things that you, the kids can actually answer. So when you bring this up here, how you want them to deliver it to you, whether or not it's text entry, or whatever the case might be, again, you can set this as complete or incomplete, or if you wanted to actually assign a grade to it, you can do that as well to make it a percentage, as far as if you scored it as such. If you wanted them to type it in a Word document and then upload it, you would just change your online entry to then a file upload, and they would just upload the file there. And again, you can set up who it's assigned to and the due date and that kind of stuff as well. Did you have any questions for me as far as specifics to look at? I think I lost you again.
All right, Tammy, sorry about that. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay,
Bless
sorry.
your heart.
I don't know what is going on. It's driving me nuts.
And it could be Google, I mean, the go-to. So I don't know, because we've had some issues in the past too, not quite like this. So as far as people getting kicked out, and maybe that happens, but it just happens to be one person, since there's only one other person other than me. What I was asking right before you got kicked out this last time was, did you have any specifics that you wanted me to show you about this? Does my module concept make any sense whatsoever as far as how I do that?
Yes, it does. It makes total sense, and that gives me a lot better idea of like timelines, because I didn't, I didn't really know how. Like you said, it was very overwhelming when I logged on there, and there was all these modules, and it was like all of these you know, I mean, it was very overwhelming. I like how you have it all broke down and due dates and stuff. So.
Right, and again, when you first do it, it's a little time consuming in the beginning. So as a second year teacher or teaching, are you a second year teacher or are you just second year teaching this?
Second year teacher.
Bless. So all of the above, but you know, it might be a little much of an undertaking trying to get that structure there, but you can always start with it and just, you may not be able to put every single thing down that you're wanting to do, but at least it gives you something to start with if that is of interest to you to do it that way. But once you get it set up, then it's just a matter of, like I do the weeks and I put the dates. You might just want to do week 1 and not put a date there.
Okay.
But that just kind of helps me. I also teach community college online, and so that's just how we do it. We do it week by week by week on our online classes, so students know exactly what their reading assignments are, and then some of the other things that their assignments that they have, and it just seems to really bring structure and organization to the course, and that's why I kind of copy that over into my high school classes as well. And the neat thing is even with your modules, down at the bottom, say that I go and I'm thinking, okay, everything that I want out of this, channel it. Okay, I don't need anything else, so I'm just going to delete all these. You can delete these, but they're still there because all you're doing is deleting the module itself. The files and things are still in their prospective places. The quizzes are still under quizzes, the pages, all of those things are still scattered about in that canvas. They're just no longer set up in a module. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So did you have any specifics for me? I want to give you a chance to kind of ask me some things that I might could help you with.
I think what I need to do is actually just kind of dive into it and do it. I have your email. Would you be available if I emailed you some questions? I know you're super busy teaching too, to like.
No, absolutely. I would be more than glad to help you. And and if we can't get it on an email, we might could, get back up here or Google Hangout or something, just to kind of share screens or whatever if there's something that you specifically need help for. But no, I'll be more than glad to help you.
Okay.
Try to get it going.
Okay, and I don't mean to cut this short. I have something that just came up that I need to take care of.
No, I understand totally.
And I totally appreciate your time in helping me, but I will expect a email from me because I know I'm going to need help. So
most definitely, please make sure you reach out. I'll be glad to help you.
Okay, thanks, Tammy.
Okay. All right, thank you. You have a good evening.